Hello and welcome to Shenandoah National Park. I'm intern Ben, and today we're at Big Meadows. I'd like to talk to you about Skyline Drive, its history, how it came to be, and the people involved with its creation. To start, Skyline Drive is one of the most important pieces of Shenandoah National Park. It runs 105 miles along the entire length of the park, and all of its twists and turns are designed to maximize the effect of nature and wildlife that you can see driving along its length. Behind me, here in Big Meadows, you can see a pretty significant portion of Skyline Drive, and this part right here will actually be important to talk about as we continue on about its history. So where does Skyline Drive start? Well, to begin, we have to understand that Skyline Drive and Shenandoah National Park are two halves of one much larger whole. Without these two pieces, neither one would function appropriately. So to start with the drive, we have to start with the park. The park's conception will begin in roughly the 1920s, during a time of great prosperity and wealth here in America. Automobiles were becoming much more popular, and eastern cities were growing at a very large rate. Almost all of the national parks up to that point were in western states, and here in the east we had almost no national parks. Acadia would be the first, up in the northeast. So the National Park Service wanted to create new parks for these growing cities and growing communities here in the east. Shenandoah would be one of the first ones selected and built in this area. They wanted to expand upon this automotive industry that was exploding here in the United States, growing at a rapid rate. At the time, in 1925, roughly 20 million cars were on the road. Only 15% of the American population had access to motor vehicles. Today, there are over 270 million cars on the road. That means 80% of Americans should have access to vehicles today. And the NPS planned for this, building Shenandoah here with Skyline Drive as its main feature that can be accessed by motor vehicles during all times of the year. So this was planned as by a committee that was created by the National Park Service. This was the Southern Appalachian National Park Committee, and they surveyed a great deal of lands and areas in the southeast United States. Here in the Shenandoah Valley, a number of towns, businesses, and local leaders came together to form an incorporated business so that they could attract that National Park Committee here to Shenandoah and try to build this national park. They are known as the Shenandoah Valley Incorporated. This group would get in touch with one of the leading people here in Shenandoah and one of our most scenic sites, Skyline Resort, hosted by George Freeman Pollock. He was an eccentric man who wanted to create a much larger space for his Skyland Resort, and he hoped that he could continue to be the concessionaire there and increase his business and also his fame. He used some of his contacts, some of which were people who resided or had homes at Skyland in Washington, to encourage that National Park Committee to come here to Shenandoah National Park. The Shenandoah Valley Incorporated and George Freeman Pollock worked together to create spaces, accommodations, and resources that park committee could use while exploring Shenandoah National Park. They hosted horseback rides, created trails, created lookout towers even, that the South Appalachian National Park Committee could use to explore the park and its many diverse areas. Following this, the park committee proposed 3 different sites. Here, Shenandoah National Park was one of the selected, Mammoth Cave down in Tennessee was also selected, and Great Smoky Mountains in North Carolina and Tennessee was another selected location. In 1925, under the presidency of Calvin Coolidge, this legislation passed and created those 3 different parks, but they weren't officially made until much later. First, they had to acquire the land, and this was done without any federal money. No federal provision was made for acquiring this land, and all of it had to be generated by the state. The state had to acquire the funds and then purchase the land from local residents and other individuals here in the area. Because of this, it would take a significant amount of time to generate the funds needed to properly purchase the land and acquire the land from those mountain residents. So after Coolidge's second term ends, another president will be brought into the mix to encourage and further develop Skyline Drive and Shenandoah National Park. Herbert Hoover, before he is even inaugurated, understands that he will need somewhere to get away from DC, the heat and the heat of the White House, with all of the pressures of the media and other political endeavors. So he decides to build here in Shenandoah Rapidan Camp, seated on the Rapidan River. He will use this as a way to get away from DC, up into the mountain air, a place where he can fish, spend time with family and friends, as well as with other politicians and even foreign heads of state to discuss political matters and also spend time to create better connections between these different countries. He is a huge proponent of the park. He enjoys getting outside and believes that all Americans should do so. Because of this, he will also encourage the building of Skyline Drive. And this piece you've seen behind me, as I referenced before, will be one of the first sections built between Rapidan Camp to the south and Skyline to our north. This stretch of road will be unpaved during Hoover's time as president, and the visitors that come to see it only get a taste of what the Skyline Drive will eventually become with its overlooks and well-manicured sidelines. Hoover will also take $1 million of federal money and use this as a drought relief program for Virginia farmers who are affected by a severe drought just before the Great Depression begins. They will be the first people to begin clearing out this road and constructing Skyline Drive. Hoover will use $1 million of federal relief money for drought-affected farmers here in Virginia. These people need help just before the Great Depression, as the United States is starting to fall into that Great Depression time period. Unfortunately, this effort will not be enough to win him the re-election, and a third president will enter the creation and building of Skyline Drive and Shenandoah National Park. Franklin D. Roosevelt will be elected as the next president, and he will serve for a majority of the Great Depression, helping the American people come out of it. During his first 100 days in office, he creates a number of New Deal programs, including the Civilian Conservation Corps. In 1933, in May, the Civilian Conservation Corps will arrive here in Shenandoah National Park. Just over my shoulder to my left, the Civilian Conservation Corps would have their camp here in Big Meadows. This camp and the work that they did here across Shenandoah National Park was all about making the Skyline Drive, flattening it out and preparing it for paving later on. They would flatten steep mountainsides, level off different areas. All of this was done by the Civilian Conservation Corps, and they created different things like overlooks, fire roads, and trails throughout the park, as well as our picnic grounds too. All of these different pieces are integral parts of Shenandoah National Park, and it would not be the same place without the hard work and dedication that these boys had to their jobs. FDR would visit them a number of times, coming to the park to check on their progress, bringing the media with him to encourage people across the United States that work was getting done and development was happening even during the midst of the Great Depression. Here in Shenandoah as well, ahead of me, there was also the location where FDR would host the dedication of the park in 1936. It was a grand event, inviting the CCC boys who had worked so hard. Thousands of them had come to see the president speak about the hard work that they did, as well as people from the surrounding communities and even people from Washington. All of them came to hear Franklin D. Roosevelt speak about Shenandoah National Park and inaugurate it as an official park within Virginia. So 80 years have passed since that inauguration, since the dedication of Shenandoah National Park. A number of things have changed. The trees have grown up, a number of the plants have grown. Some of the things that they transplanted here have grown up and become something different and more beautiful than Shenandoah was before. The overlooks and things next to the drive are all things incorporated beautifully within the nature and within the man-made structures here. The places where the CCC worked so hard to make sure that that nature and that man-made structure merged seamlessly and beautifully together to create Shenandoah National Park. So many people worked hard to make this park happen, to make sure that it could exist. 3 different presidents, the early National Park Service, businessmen from Shenandoah, private contractors, and thousands of boys working for the CCC. All of them came together to make something beautiful that we still have and cherish here today. So as you come to Shenandoah National Park, make sure you remember all of that beautiful history as you view the nature. We have just as much cultural history as we do natural history here in this beautiful park. Maybe we can ask some of our rangers and some of our fellow guests what they see here at the park and what Skyline Drive means to them.
I really like Skyline Drive because of the sunsets and like the valley it gets under.
What about you?
I like when I took pictures of the Skyline Drive sunset.
Skyline Drive is a really cool thing, a neat part of the park that a lot of people get to explore. What it is to me, it is a window to the past, to the glory days of the National Park Service, when you could go 30, 35 miles an hour nice and leisurely on a very windy mountain road. And it's relaxing, it's enjoyable. It's not a rushed thing where people used to come from the cities here and they feel that urban rush, and here it all melts away on Skyline Drive. That's what that means to me.
No, we moved up here from Florida about a year ago, and first thing I did was purchase an annual pass to the park so that we could come up here and enjoy it. It's such a relaxing, beautiful area to come to. And when you come, you can just leave the rest of the world behind and do your own thing and just feel like you're back in nature. But this is my favorite place to visit. It's my favorite place to come to, and I can't imagine going anywhere else.
To me, it's a calming experience when I'm coming to work. Whether it's a sunny day or the clouds rolling off the mountain through the fog, every time I drive Skyline Drive, it brings me a reminder that I get to come here and work at Shenandoah National Park and experience the drive in all of its beauty throughout the year.
Thank you for joining me for this program. I hope you enjoyed learning about Skyline Drive. If you have any questions or would like to learn more about Shenandoah, please visit our website or download our park app. I'm intern Ben here at Shenandoah National Park. Thank you for joining us in the Big Meadow.
One of the unique aspects of the Appalachian Trail in Shenandoah National Park is its easy access to the famous Skyline Drive. That means lots of places where day hikers can stop off and just hike a few miles. And those longer day hikers or overnight backpackers can stop off at campgrounds for a hot shower or even a soft bed at one of the cabins or lodges. And where we usually see these backpackers and thru hikers is getting a tasty snack or treat at one of the food concessioners in the park, where you can get a yummy hot meal, frosty cold milkshake, which I don't know about you, but I think tastes all the more delicious after a really long, hard hike. Here we are at one of the many trailheads in Shenandoah National Park for the world-famous Appalachian Trail, or Appalachian Trail, or the AT for short. This trail boasts of legend, reverence, commitment, and I'm hoping by walking a little bit of this trail with me today, you'll be encouraged to come and step out here on this trail yourself. And whether you spend just a few hours or many months on this trail, the AT provides a unique opportunity for adventure and self-discovery. Before I start any hike, I like to make sure that I am prepared for what might come, and that means having a few things with me in my pack. So for instance, maybe some food, water, a map. But also here in Shenandoah, especially in the spring and summer, I like to provide some tick protection. Ticks are quite common in this environment. So a few simple, easy things that I do to help prevent tick-borne illness is I like to hike with gaiters when I can. It helps the creepy crawlies from crawling up, but also it hides my fashion-forward statement of the socks pulled over the pants. One of the easiest things you can do though, even if you're hiking in shorts or sneakers, is after your hike, do a quick tick check. Just look for creepy crawlies on your skin, brush them off, and if they've already attached, then you just want to use tweezers or special tick removal equipment to remove those critters, and your friends and hiking buddies can help you do a quick overall check. Now that I know that I'm ready to begin my hike, I am going to hit the trail, so let's go hiking. So after you pass the trailhead, how do you know you're on the AT? For its entirety, there are these nice white blazes on trees and sometimes fence posts along the way to mark that you're on the AT, to go along with those initial trailhead markers. And here in Shenandoah National Park, we also have yellow and blue blazing for horse trails and all of the other non-AT walking trails in the park. A lot of work goes into maintaining this trail, but it hasn't always been one long trail. Originally completed in 1937, the Appalachian Trail stretches for over 2,000 miles and crosses 14 states. It's managed in a really interesting and unique cooperative partnership between the private and public sector, and relies heavily on volunteer work crews that will come out and help maintain the trail. As you can see behind me, there's a log check or a water bar here behind me to help keep the water off the trail. The crew that largely is responsible for leading this maintenance effort for the Appalachian Trail is the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, or the ATC. Here in Shenandoah National Park, they maintain the 100 miles of the AT that stretch here through the park, along with a little of assistance with our park trail crews, which will help maintain the other 400 miles of trail here in the park. So much work and effort goes into maintaining the Appalachian Trail for the many people who choose to hike it. Every year, on average, 2 to 3 million people complete at least a portion of the AT. And some of those hikers are through hikers, people who choose to hike the trail in its entirety all in one go. The full 2,000 miles, 2,180 or so miles of the AT typically takes the average through hiker between 5 and 6 months to complete. The first known through hiker to complete the AT successfully is Earl Schaefer. In 1948, he said he needed to hike the war out of his system. A veteran of the recent World War II, he chose to spend months on this trail as a meditation to help get some of that stressful memories and experiences out of his system. And a lot of people still choose that today. They go hiking to help relax, to meditate, to think. It's a great way to get the stressors out of your system, to hit the trail. Many people have through hiked the trail since Earl Schaefer. The first known woman to complete successfully a through hike of the AT is Grandma Gatewood. In 1955, she completed a through hike of the AT. And with dozens of children and grandchildren, she had plenty of reason to stay busy and off the trail. But she chose to hike the AT. When asked why, she said, "Because I wanted to," which speaks volumes about her sense of independence and freedom. Having spent 30 years in a brutally abusive marriage, she successfully divorced her husband in 1940 and hit the trail in 1955. She completed the trail 2 more times in her lifetime and continues to be an inspiration to through hikers today. Even by just hiking a few miles, it's easy to see why someone might want to spend a little bit more time on this amazing trail. Famous for its rocky terrain and its endless green tunnels, it's also pretty famous for its expansive vistas. It's a beautiful place to spend a few hours or many months. Some of the recent through hikers on the Appalachian Trail weren't spending many months, but mere weeks on the trail. The fastest known time records continue to become shorter and shorter on the Appalachian Trail. From 2011 to 2015, Jennifer Farr Davis nabbed the fastest known time record for anyone, male or female, on the Appalachian Trail. She's a professional hiker and speaker and continues to inspire women to get out more into the out of doors. Women continue to be a minority here on the AT, where only about 25% of all through hikers are female. The fastest known time record in 2017 was nabbed by Joe Stringbean McConaughey, who chose to do this through hike unsupported, which means, like most of the average through hikers, he carried most of his gear and supplies on his back and had to walk into local communities to get resupplies. He completed the trail in 46 days. Jennifer Farr Davis in 47 days. So a pretty tight record there. And in just 1 year later, Carl Saab nabbed the fastest known time record. He did it in 41 days and completed the trail supported. So he had a little bit of assistance bringing out gear and resupplies to him so he could go a little bit lighter, a little bit faster. A dentist by trade, Carl Saab talks about how this whole through hiking and fast packing was simply a hobby that got out of hand. Many of us have hobbies of hiking, walking, trail running, ultra marathoning, and the AT is a place where we can explore those recreational hobbies of ours. Today, though, not a lot of the average through hikers are fast packers. About 4,000 people every year attempt a through hike of the AT, but only about 25% of them succeed. So about 1,000 people successfully complete the AT as a through hike. In 2016, Rahawa Hale became one of the few minority hikers to complete the trail. As a Black woman in America hiking the AT, she's also brought a lot of attention about who this trail can be for. She is an avid social media following, a public speaker, and a writer before she even hit the trail. She has brought a new voice to the hiker-writer community. She was asked, she said, "People ask me why I chose to hike the Appalachian Trail. And I tell them because it was the clearest shape of freedom for who I was before it." This sense of finding freedom on the trail continues to persist in the day hikers and through hikers every day on the AT, where you get to choose how far you go, when you get up, what you want to see, and who you want to talk to. You even have the freedom to choose what you bring with you. Sometimes folks want to bring just a few things in their packs. Other times they're going to bring something special. If you come out and hike the AT, what will you bring on your hike? As we hike a little bit further up the trail, give that some thought. What are some things you're going to bring in your pocket or in your backpack? So did you think about the things that you might bring with you? On a hike like this, do you want to go alone? Really take that opportunity to find solitude? Are you going to bring a best friend? Along with who you're going to bring, there's some other things that you should bring with you to have a fun and relatively uneventful hike. After all, you don't want this to be your very last hike you ever do. So being prepared for the unknown is a very great way to make sure that this is going to be a pretty fun experience. And all long day hikers and backpackers and through hikers need to carry the 10 essentials. The 10 essentials are navigation, sun protection, insulation, illumination, fire, tools, hydration, nutrition, first aid, and emergency shelter. More specifically, navigation, that's going to be things like map, a compass. You might bring a GPS unit, and whatever you bring, map, compass, GPS, make sure you know how to use it so that when it's time to, when you need it, you can deploy it with success. After navigation, we have sun protection. That means something like hat, sunscreen, long sleeves on a really sunny day if you're not going to have some good forest cover. Insulation, an extra cover. Extra layer of some kind. Depending on the weather, that might be a rain jacket, a fleece, something warm. And in the spring and fall, even if you start out on a hot day, the weather can change instantly. So having a hat and gloves, things like that are going to be really important. Illumination. You want to bring some kind of light. I usually bring a headlamp with me, but even a flashlight is great. And if you're going overnight, it's good to have spare batteries for that light. Fire. Now it's good to know if you can build a fire in the place that you're hiking. In some places, campfires are prohibited. Here in Shenandoah National Park, you can only have a fire at designated huts along the AT and in campgrounds. But you might need access to a flame to light your camp stove. So having some form of fire is crucial. You're also going to want to bring hydration, so some sort of water, liquids with you. Now this isn't as tasty as a frosty milkshake, just lukewarm water, but it's good enough. It's not milkshake good, but it's pretty good. It's good to have some snacks with you. You need nutrition. Now, sometimes that's high protein, things, high carb to get you on many, many miles. Other times, snacks. I hike with toddlers a lot, so my backpack is full of snacks. And I find that even for us adults, it helps us get through that one extra mile. Bring a first aid kit with you. Doesn't have to be something fancy like this. It can even be just a Ziploc bag with some of those basic supplies. Here in Shenandoah, I'm gonna have my little tick removal kit, super cheap. You can buy it at your local drugstore. And you can find out online some of the basic things that you wanna bring in a first aid kit with you. And an emergency shelter. For backpackers and overnight hikers, they're already gonna have something like a tarp, a tent. They're gonna have a sleeping bivvy of some kind with them. For long day hikers, folks that are out for at least 5 or 10 or 15 miles, we want to bring an emergency shelter, something very light, doesn't weigh us down, but can keep us warm should the weather change drastically. I have my 10 essentials here with me, but that's not going to be the only thing that I'm going to bring with me, right? I'm going to bring something else, something that's important to me. Grandma Gatewood famously brought very few things on her through hike, packed into a denim sack thrown over her shoulder. In that sack, she famously brought a plastic rain curtain or plastic shower curtain. It would have made good rain protection for her along the trail. Rahawa Hale brought a collection of books by some of her favorite Black authors to help inspire her along the long journey. And then she shared these books at trail libraries, at huts, and at stop-off points along the way in hopes of inspiring others along the trail. What you bring with you will largely depend on what you need from the trail. Are you going out to find solitude, commune with nature? Are you going out for an adventure? Are you hoping to see bears and hike high rocky peaks? Do you need to hike something truly stressful out of your system? You might want to bring a journal or something like that with you. If you're just out there to have fun, maybe you'll bring a nice, fun hat with you. Whatever you bring, it will be personal and will make the trail all the more rewarding for you. One of the other 10 essentials I didn't mention earlier is tools. And one of the tools I bring with me on most of my hikes is my smartphone. I don't usually use it as a phone. It's just a lightweight camera, as well as a place to take notes. But when I hike out to places where there is cell service or Wi-Fi, I can reach the outside world. So it's a little extra tool that I like to bring with me, but maybe you're gonna bring a multi-tool, a knife, something like that with you. What you bring with you really is going to depend on the hike that you plan to hike and what you plan on doing. An easy stroll through the woods? Or are you hoping to find one of those epic vistas that we're famous for here in Shenandoah? It's easy to see why so many people want to hike a portion of the Appalachian Trail or spend many months on this trail. And you're going to bring things with you that help make this adventure special to just you. Whether you spend just a few hours on this trail, an easy walk with your family, or many months, there is something unique and special here for you. If you're looking for these expansive vistas, solitude, a chance to get a little bit closer to nature or recreate and get stronger as a runner on the trails, this trail has something special for you. This place, this trail, it's for you, for all of you. You have a place here on this footpath for the people.